On today's episode, we have Kevin Wolfe of Leaders Way. He coaches body shops, businesses of all kinds, really, on how to become the employer of choice. And when it comes down to it, we are talking about leadership. And I know that you've heard leadership talks before. I also know you've probably never heard one like this. It is good. We are in what Kevin calls a disengagement epidemic, both worldwide and in businesses. Why is that? And how can you turn it around? What an awesome opportunity for all of us. I am excited for you guys to listen to this. Check it out.
Welcome to Body Bangin', your podcast for all things body. Auto body, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Mickey Woods of Mickey Woods Marketing. Mickey is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Well, hello. Welcome back to the Body Bangin' podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. You know, I got to say it. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe and hit that notifications bell so you get notified when a new episode drops. And then if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you click the follow button. Same type of thing. It should notify you, if your phone's not acting up like mine loves to do. And it should be right at the top of your podcast when you pop into the platform. So Body Bangin' is growing. It has become the #1 podcast in the collision industry. So exciting. And we continue to have amazing guests on the podcast. And today I'm excited to bring you Kevin Wolfe of Leaders Way. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Mickey. How are you today?
Great. I'm excited to chat with you.
I am too. I've heard great things about your podcast, and everybody is jumping on your wagon, it sounds like.
It's a fun wagon. We like it here. So
Good.
Kevin works specifically with leadership. And he is been in the shop. He ran his own shop for 22 years, been in the industry. You worked for a paint company for a while, didn't you?
I did not.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
You've spoken for a paint company.
Yes.
Lots of paint company things.
Yes.
Yes. I knew there was a paint company, something in there. And one thing I had in my notes from our original call, Kevin, was you were running a body shop. And it was really successful financially, but yet you found yourself to be struggling. And I think I in my note, I wrote that and I thought, isn't that interesting? Because most people would say if it's financially profitable, that's all that matters. Where you were financially doing well, yet struggling. Can you get into that a little bit?
Well, yes. And just to clarify a little bit, the collision industry is something that I've learned. I was in the mechanical industry for 22 years.
Okay.
After attending Penn State, I took a gap year. And when I came back home, my dad had a mechanical shop that he started in 1953. My dad's origins being a machinist. And I had no inclination to be in the mechanical industry. Yes. I went to college for horticulture. And my dad was in a pretty nasty place. He was really short of people and he was working way too hard. And I said, listen, I can give you a couple weeks and try to help you get back on track. And, I don't know what I can do, but I can help. And that ended in a 22-year career. It wasn't a couple of years into working with my dad that we decided that it was important that I buy the business from him because we weren't seeing eye to eye, and I had a direction I wanted to go, and he wanted to retire. So you're right in the recollection of we were financially very, very successful. We were a very, very busy business, but you can imagine, being in a situation where every day, as you get closer and closer to the shop, you have this growing pain in your gut because you know what the day is going to be like. It's just a bit of a nightmare from the beginning to the end, and everybody's getting pushed beyond. And it was not a pleasant experience at all. So at one point, I decided that there had to be a better way, and know that this would have been in the 80s. And so I began searching for a solution. Like, how do we build a better company? And obviously the conversations around leadership were very, very young back in the 80s.
Yes.
I think the ASC had just started some management programs in some of their conferences.
Okay.
I remember going to a boot camp in Orlando at one point, but you go to these boot camps and it was still all business oriented. It was still marketing and technology and all these different things. Nobody's talking about the people side of the business.
Yes.
And one day at a conference in Point Clear, Alabama, I met a speaker who became my mentor, a gentleman named Richard Flint, who's still very active. And I sat in his program and I said, that is exactly it. And that it did what he's talking about are the challenges. We know how to fix cars. We know how to run a business. We know our finances. We know our marketing spot on. But the problem is that nobody's happy. And so his program was no excuse management. And I jumped into it with both feet and actually started executing. And straight out, it was 2 or 3 years of being really hard at that and get everybody involved in it. And we created a culture where we became the employer of choice, the provider of choice. People looked forward to coming to work. They got enjoyment from it. And it was just a wonderful place to be.
Yes.
That got noticed.
Right.
And I had people, including that speaker, asking me to teach.
Wow.
Can you show me how you got here?
Right.
And that was really the headwaters to Leader's Way.
I bet. Well, because you learned and you tested it. Because you had to get in and get your feet wet.
Yes.
So you learned the hard way. So what a better mentor to have someone like you then.
Well, it has, Mickey, been one of the primary differences was that this is not just theory for me.
Right.
No, it's not just stuff that I read in a book. I physically had to do it myself. And, the interesting piece, I kind of glazed over that, but I think every business owner finds this. If they're going to grow at some point, they get to the point where they realize that they're the problem. And I reluctantly, kicking and dragging, got to that point where I realized nothing was going to be different here until I became different.
Right.
And so that was really when leadership became an important concept for me, because Peter Drucker said once that there's only 3 things that happen naturally in business: friction, chaos, and underperformance. Like everything else takes leadership. And so when people ask me, why is this leadership thing so important? And that's how I answer, because it's the absolute truth. I mean, that's what I was suffering in my business. And it's what I see people every day when I'm coaching or when I'm doing a virtual meeting. This is what people are dealing with. How do we create the culture where this kind of bad behavior goes away, where it's not like this?
Right.
And it takes leadership.
Yeah, that's an incredible thing. So he said the 3 things that come naturally. Can you say those again?
Friction.
Okay.
Chaos. And underperformance.
Isn't that interesting? It's so true, really.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, Peter Drucker is the father of modern leadership. There is still the Peter Drucker School of Business at USC, but way ahead of his time.
Wow. That is really like such an insightful thing. Yet you're like, well, yeah, duh. I mean, when you think about it, but
yeah,
very interesting.
But if you make the connection, so these are observations, and I share with people that I work with that I study all the time. And so when I present something, I'm pretty clear on what I'm presenting. And if I'm not, I make sure that I preface it with, this is my opinion.
Right.
But I can share with you that one of the biggest challenges that we have in business is that most people, the vast majority of people that occupy leadership positions, don't lead.
Agreed.
They're either doing a job, that they got promoted into, that they were doing before they got promoted into a leadership position, or they're focused on the numbers, or they're focused on the process, or they're focused on, but they're not leading. Which I believe translates to the fact that we're at the highest level of disengagement in the US in our history. We've never had 73%, and this is Gallup numbers, 73% of the workforce admits to just either not caring or flying under the radar.
Right. Well, yeah, you had mentioned that in our call originally, and I wrote that again in my notes, and you had called it the disengagement epidemic. And I'm like, yeah, I see it everywhere, right? Not just body shops. I mean, anywhere you go, like people, why do people not even care? Do you even like, hello? So then the question becomes, why? What is creating this?
Yeah. Well, again, it's a subject that I can talk about all day long, but the foundational answer to that is that businesses are not meeting the basic needs that people have. This is why, and it's a perfect storm in many, many regards. I mean, historically, if we go back, organizational psychologists like Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow, who is a huge hero for me. And, I believe that, we admire people that maybe decades before said something that just totally relevant today. Right? This is Maslow, this is Rogers, this is, just Peter Drucker. These are people that have passed that are just, incredible. But Abraham Maslow and Carl Rogers unfortunately died in the 70s. And so their promotion, they were humanistic psychologists.
Okay.
And they were doing all of their practices in the business, in other words, to promote humanistically based businesses. Their concept was, if you meet the needs of the people that actually work there, that you will be vastly more productive and profitable than if you treat them like objects.
Right.
And treat them like tools that are necessary in order to get work done. And so, just roughly speaking, Mickey, Maslow, and there's a lot of iterations of this today, but Maslow, I think best communicated in 7 Habits, translated by Stephen Covey, to live, to learn, to love, to leave a legacy. So that these are the foundational needs that people have, is that I need to survive at the foundation. I need to pay my mortgage. I need to put a roof over my head. I need to send my kids to school. But once that need is met, that I'm getting paid fairly, I elevate to the next need. And that is the developmental need. I need to be in a position where I'm constantly being challenged, to learn something new, to develop, to realize what my potential is. Once that need's being met, we elevate to, and what Covey said is to love, or Maslow referred to it as the emotional need. I need relationship. I need relationship. I need to know that the people around me care. The highest need in Maslow's teaching was the legacy, that I need to know that what I do is contributing to something bigger than me, that I need to know that I'm part of something, that my work that I'm doing matters.
Yeah.
And so all of this was happening in the 50s and 60s. And unfortunately, and it's rare that we can go back and we can say, yeah, it was 1970. But in this case, we can actually say it was in 1970 when a gentleman named Milton Friedman, professor at the University of Illinois, Chicago, produced a white paper that won a Nobel Prize in economics that basically promoted that the only purpose for business is shareholder return. Nothing else mattered.
Wow.
And I'm telling you, businesses jumped on that model. And there's a lot of people that will listen to this and be upset about it, but that really doesn't matter. But this is how we got off the rails. So for the last 50 years, we've been chasing profit, and the evidence is all there. We've got 70% disengagement. No, that's number one. We went from 20 to 1 CEO to average employee wage disparity to 3 or 4 weeks ago was officially at 400 to 1.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So therein lies a lot of the source of the problem. And as you would hear Simon Sinek say, is that prior to 1970, there was no such thing as mass layoff. The only reason that companies would lay people off was the actual survival of the company. The issue today is that people are being laid off to protect the profit. So that shareholders don't have to sacrifice any profit. And so I say all these things not to throw anybody under the bus or to, if this is a reality of our situation, that if we're going to be successful, if the listeners or anybody watching this podcast, you're going to turn your business around, you're going to, at some point, recognize the real virtuous cycle of profitability. And that's putting the needs of the people that actually show up there and work first.
Right.
That their needs come first. And if we can create the conditions, and that requires leadership. So leadership is the foundation of this. Without leadership, it doesn't happen. But it's leadership creating the conditions. Our job is to create the conditions at work where we are impacting engagement. And listen, I was just not a shop owner. I was an ASE certified master tech a number of times. So I understand technology, and it trained in my brain that you're always looking for the source of the problem.
Right.
And I have a hard time even articulating, when I want to understand, why would we focus on anything else when we know that engagement impacts every single financial metric?
Right.
And I could go on for an hour talking about this. It's the one factor. It's the one thing that impacts every financial metric over anything else we can do in business. But yet it's getting worse. It's not getting better.
Right. Well, and I feel like it's interesting, everything you're talking about. I have so many thoughts in my mind about all of this. It seems like, and hopefully I'm not taking us down a different path here, but culturally, I feel like people are so disengaged in general with their own friendships, with their own family. And now we've got it in the workplace. So at first glance, it appears like, oh, this is how we are as a culture.
Yes.
Yeah. So at the same time, there's a way to repair this, at least. And I guess we could use, like what you're saying, the engagement at all levels. So, yeah, did I just take you down a whole bunny trail there?
Oh no! It's exciting. I love rabbit holes, but I guess what I would say, we don't experience life; we experience what we pay attention to. And it speaks to the idea that none of us as humans experience reality. We experience our version of it.
Right.
I mean, you think back to the days when we had regular, SLR cameras, and my dad was a big photographer, when he wasn't machining or fixing cars, and he would we'd go out into the country and he'd go like this to see, what did he want to see in the frame?
Right.
From a conscious perspective, that's what we do. Wherever we have that frame, whatever we're paying attention to becomes our reality. Right. The beautiful thing about that is that if we don't like what we're looking at, as humans, we have the ability to change the frame by shifting our attention.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example of this. And again, it comes to a common sense, logical type thing is that, and I've said this in a lot of sessions recently, I'm physically going Monday to a collision conference in Chicago, and I'll be speaking there. And I'll have this conversation. I can go to one of these conferences where there's a couple hundred business owners, and I'll sit down at a table and just listen. That whole table will talk about how bad it is right now. They'll talk about the economy is keeping them from being successful. The labor shortage is keeping them from being successful. The supply chain issues are what keeping them from being successful. I'll go 10 feet to another table, and they'll be talking about how this is the best time they've ever operated a collision shop. How did that happen? It's the attention. It's what I'm paying attention to.
Right.
So right now, so many business owners are paying attention to the obstacle.
Mm,
And I think we're probably in position for those listeners and for those in the collision industry. I'll stick to that because we work in many different industries. But I think it's the biggest opportunity that businesses have had in decades to
mm,
separate themselves, to be the employer of choice, to be the provider of choice, to drive more profitability than you ever have if you're willing to change your frame.
right.
And one of the challenges is with that, drops down to the level of bias, is that we get very comfortable in our familiar bias. And
Mm-hmm.
that's an
Mm-hmm.
official bias,
Yeah.
right? It's this strategy drove my success,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to stick with it because
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm comfortable with. Well, everything externally has changed.
Right.
Everything externally is completely different when that strategy was successful for you.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I don't think, again, I'll share this next week. I don't think businesses suffer because of the economy, because of labor shortage, because of global supply chain issues. I think businesses suffer because they fail to adapt.
Mm.
And and
Yeah.
what you were speaking to a little bit there, and our Surgeon General and his team have determined. He announced this like 3 or 4 weeks ago that the number one cause of mental health issues in this country today is loneliness.
Mm.
And as you were talking about, I mean, we don't have like the family unit
Right.
like we used to.
Yeah.
Our communities aren't there. The
Right.
bowling, the baseball leagues and stuff are all different.
Right.
It's business now. The
Mm-hmm.
business has the opportunity to create community. Business
Mm.
has the opportunity to meet the basic needs of people. And actually back in the 60s, Maslow said it's business.
Mm.
Actually, business has had the biggest opportunity to change the world.
Wow.
And when you think about it, it's where people spend majority of their waking
Right.
hours.
Right.
Yes.
It gave me the goosebumps when you said that.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing, such a
Yeah.
beautiful opportunity for owners and the leaders in your company to step in and embrace that and know that you get to be that for people
Yes.
because they're not getting it in their everyday lives. I mean, what a blessing.
Oh, it is.
Wow.
Oh, it is. And the byproduct is profitability like you've never
Right.
seen.
Right. I
Because
bet.
happy, engaged employees, that are they're the ones that are driving the customer experience. I mean,
Yes.
so when
Yes.
you say you can see it everywhere, what you're referring to is walking into a Starbucks or into a Target or into whatever, and
Yes.
everybody just dead.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yes.
you have to search for somebody to help you. That's an engagement issue.
Yeah.
These are people that don't care.
Right.
They just don't care, and that's a product of leadership and the conditions that people work in.
Mm-hmm.
What we haven't really touched on, and certainly, I mean, the pandemic accelerated a lot of things because we locked down.
Right.
So the isolation that was already in play,
Mm. Yeah.
was
Magnified. Mm-hmm.
magnified in a big way. Meanwhile, what's creeping into this, and this is a very interesting subject for me as well, is the Y and Z generation.
Mm.
And I can't tell you, it's there's certain things that happen that maybe cause the sensitivity. Like some people, it's like when somebody yells, I get really sensitive.
Yes.
Like when I have a business owner saying, the problem is nobody wants to work anymore. That's a sensitivity to me. That's wrong.
Mm.
What we have to, I think, get our head around is that's not how evolution works.
Mm.
Evolution is thousands of years. It is thousands of years for the brain to adapt. And one of the challenges, on a side note, that we face is that evolution hasn't caught up to the 21st century. And
Mm.
so the distraction that we have today via technology, via communication, via Facebook, via TikTok, all of it, the brain wasn't managed for that. It creates a
Right.
lot of mental stress.
Yes.
But evolution doesn't have the capacity to change the work ethic of 2 generations in 10 years. Years. It's
Right.
not possible.
Yeah.
And so when I get a group to that point, that's not possible. So let's check that off. What is different about our kids today, and our workforce today? Is parenting.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it's like you were talking about earlier with the nurturing. And so these are the conditions that have changed.
Yes.
If we don't adapt to them, we're going to be in trouble. The oldest millennial is like 44. And I ask people, how many 44-year-olds you have? Oh, a lot. The oldest Z generation is 25 or 26. They're in your workforce now.
Yes, right.
If you're waiting for them to develop the workforce that the boom and the X generation had, we will wait a long time.
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to interrupt this podcast for just one quick second because a lot of people wonder, Mickey, what is it that you even do besides host a podcast? Well, I do marketing, and really the biggest thing that I do is help you drive more traffic to your business. And not even just more traffic, but consistent traffic to your business. As a former shop owner, I know how important that is. So if that's something you're interested in, or you just want to talk about marketing or developing your business in general, feel free to reach out. You can visit collisioncentermarketing.com. There's a calendar on there, and you can just book a time that works for you, and we'll set up a phone call. Or you can email or call me, and my notes are down in the description of this episode. But I hope to hear from you. I'd love to help you build your business. But in the meantime, you better get back to this podcast because it's really good. Well, you were talking in the beginning of this podcast about how, the layoffs, and the basic need. It really kind of struck a chord with me because the basic need is to be able to financially provide for your home and your family. Like my father worked the same job, almost, one whole job, maybe had a couple little ones when he was younger. And then once he got his main job, that was it because it accomplished that first goal. And that's where he was going to stay.
That's right. And that's all that mattered. And again, I'm older. And so I remember that. And I remember growing up in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, all of my friends at school, they just wanted to get a job at Bethlehem Steel. Because they provided. They provided. It was an awful job. It was a dirty job. It was a shift job. It was all of that it provided. Yeah, we're way beyond all of that now. And smart business owners are going to change their attention, and they're going to start focusing on creating the conditions, where we're elevating people every day. That we know who they are, we know what they need, and we're providing that. And that's what's going to unlock the potential of the people that actually work here. And listen, it's not theoretical. I have many clients that have crossed over. Like they get it, they've done it, they're crazy profitable. People love working there. They're the employer of choice. They don't have the issues that people who are paying attention to process and profitability, and they don't have the same issues. Right.
Well, and going back to that, it's almost as if, and I'm kind of putting different pieces together. I'm having my little own aha moment over here. And I might be way off, so you can tell me. But the generation like of my father, who got the one job, had the basic need met of providing for the family, stayed there forever, in the community, in the home, in the family, was getting these other needs met.
That's right. That's right.
So therefore, he was able to stay in that job and be okay with it. I mean, not that he loved that job, but that's just what he did. Now, meanwhile, here we are, 2023, these other needs are not being met. And now, of course, it's trickling into the business. Into business.
It clearly is. Listen, Mickey, you're everything that people told me you were, right? This is really a good conversation because
Thank you.
You nailed it there. And I hope everybody watching gets what Mickey's saying. I block myself 30 minutes every morning to go through Apple News and just breeze through Facebook quickly. And over the last couple of weeks on Apple News, there's been this article that say why people don't go to church anymore. So you think about, I go to work, I go to the mill, to get my financial needs met.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a hobby,
Mm-hmm.
a hobby that gets my mental needs met.
Right.
No, my challenge needs.
Yeah.
I go to bowling.
Mm-hmm.
I hang out, do dancing with my friends. I do all of that. That's my social thing.
Right.
I go to church for purpose and meaning.
Yes.
Right. And these things have collapsed.
Yes.
I mean, they truly have collapsed.
Yeah.
And again, all experiences are neutral. It's our thoughts about them that make it positive or negative. We get to choose.
Yes,
We're not victims.
Mm-hmm.
Business owners, get to choose how they're going to build their business, so how they're going to design it for the future.
Mm-hmm.
The longer we wait around for something to change, the further behind we get.
Right.
In creating and moving up and creating the conditions that attract and retain and realize the potential of a Y and Z generation.
Right. Well, it's exactly like you're saying. If there are business owners waiting for this group of people to shift back to what they perceive to be the way things should work,
yes.
Good luck to you. And there's so many business owners, body shop owners doing that. They just don't want to work anymore. Nobody shows up. And there are those, I understand those issues exist for these businesses. Totally. I'm not saying that they don't. I also appreciate what you're saying is you, body shop owner, manager, have the opportunity to shift that.
Yes.
And if you sit and wait, guess what?
Yep.
Enjoy sitting and waiting. So you're going to be doing it for a while.
No doubt. And in a lot of my virtual meetings, and we work in biotech, we work in insurance, we work in architecture and medical, a lot of different fields. But the interesting thing is that we don't change any one of our programs.
Right.
Like they're all the same, because what we deal with 100% of the time are people issues.
Right. Right.
We believe that our job is to help businesses create those conditions where people actually want to show up. They don't need to show up, but they want to show up.
Yes.
And I think one of the things I've been teaching in my sessions, and I love when I go back to something that really something that I learned early on, and now it appears more relevant than it ever has. But it's Viktor Frankl and his freedom to choose that comes out of Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl being the Jewish professor at the University of Munich who was abducted in World War II and sent to a Nazi prison camp, a specialized Nazi prison camp that was focused on human experimentation.
Oh boy!
So experimenting with the prisoners there, and what he learned in that experience, and he said it so amazingly. He said, "My captors have more liberty than I, because I can't leave this cell. Right. They can go home. They can go to a restaurant." He said, "But I have more freedom." He said, "Because between every stimulus and every response, there's a space. And in that space lies our power and our freedom to choose, not just choices, but our destiny." And, Mickey, my biggest fear is that my destiny would be determined unconsciously. Destiny being defined as, the present moment that I'm experiencing, that's a full product of the choices and decisions that I make.
Right.
So Frankl challenges us. And I think it's a wonderful place for business owners to start, is that no matter where you are, no matter what's happening in your life, it's your making.
Yeah.
You did this.
Agreed.
Nothing externally, because in every turn, you had the freedom to choose. Right. And the beautiful thing is that if you're not happy where you are today, you have the freedom to choose something different.
Yes.
And to me, that's goosebump stuff.
Yeah.
It really enables us, no matter you're a collision shop owner or, an individual who wants change in their lives. It's using that space every single time to make that choice.
Yeah. So powerful.
It is.
So for my shops out there listening, even because we have a lot of listeners that aren't managers and owners, they work in a shop, they're a vendor for a shop, whatever, dealerships, you name it. We got all kinds of people. So And this applies, like you were saying, to your life in general, because this can apply to your family. How can we start to engage with our family more? How, if we're not happy with whatever, we have the power to do different, to create different. So, with that being said, if there's a first step, what would be a first step as a business owner, whoever wants to start shifting that, like you were saying with the camera, and if you're not watching on YouTube, we're holding up our hands like we're looking through a frame. If they're wanting to shift things, what is the first step in that process?
That's a really big question, because if the question is in context to how do I shift my attention in my business, it is about realigning and paying attention to the people that show up there every day, the people that volunteer to come work with you, to sit and talk with them and find out what they're looking for. You need people you don't know. And unfortunately, a lot of people in lead positions do that. But it's getting that information and starting to apply those kind of things in your business, maybe taking an inventory of what we're doing to meet the needs of the people that show up there every day. And this is it's a loaded question for sure. And one of the things that I would tell you that makes Leaders Way different than most is that we deal with the systemic issues. Like, well, we're not interested. I'll give you an example. So, I'm doing this as a favor next week to speak at a conference, but I'm also there for another reason, is that if somebody says, could you come do a 2-day leadership program for me? My answer is always no. It doesn't do anything.
Right.
It's not how the brain works.
True.
And so if you're willing to invest in a year, I'm all yours. Because I'll show you at the end of the year, the attention's been shifted enough.
Yeah.
Now you and your people on your lead team are focused on things that really matter.
Right.
And you can start seeing the traction you get. It's
right.
It's consistency.
Yeah.
And I ask viewers to pay attention to what I'm doing every single day. There's no silver bullet to this. It's only hard work.
Yeah. Right.
And and I was just talking to a shop owner in Alaska, and she and I were just talking about the idea that you either pay me now or you pay me later. You do this work over the next 2 to 3 years, and really create the leadership and create the culture and create all of that. And you've got 12 or 14, the rest of your business is life is successful and it's happy and it's less stressful.
Right.
You don't deal with these issues, and it's going to be like this every day.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So it's the first step, I think, would go back to, you can't lead a person past the point where you are. And
great point. Great point. Can you say that again?
You just can't lead a person past the point where you are.
Love that. Love that.
And so at Leaders Way, we focus a lot on personal development, and a good pickup that you had. Like when we do feedback after a year in a program, one of the things that you'll hear consistently, well, frankly, this helped me more at home than it did at work. Better relationships with my spouse, better relationships with my kids. I feel better about myself.
Right.
All that does is translate to better performance at work.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And so for decision makers, is really about your own development. And are you taking responsibility for what's happening? And if you are, then what do we need to do? What do we need to shift? Where does our attention need to move to? I would say in the top couple is that getting your leadership team the skill sets, the leadership team skill sets.
Right.
If we have, let's say, I was talking to somebody that had a very positive and eager detailer. And this person was doing a great job in detail. And because they were hanging around the shop, they said, I really, really want to be an estimator. Well, jump right in and give them all kind of estimatic training.
Right.
No problem investing in that. Move someone who is a good estimator, maybe a good body tech, maybe a painter, maybe who knows, into a leadership position, zero.
Yes. Right.
It is a specific skill set, just like schematics, just like body work, just like painting, just like counting. It's a specific skill set.
Right.
Yet we haven't got our heads around the idea that needs a dedicated training program. There are
Right.
actual skills that leaders have to gain in order to elevate people
Yeah.
around them.
Yeah. I think you're exactly right. And it's so many people become a manager or an owner, therefore they assume they're a leader, and one does not equal the other. And we oftentimes forget that. And
Yeah, no,
some people inherently are really good leaders. Interestingly enough, where you're like, wow, you were really good at this. At the end of the day, I think those people are more likely to be doing a lot of internal work, a lot of
yes,
mirror
they are.
work.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, you're 100% right. And that was getting ready to come out of my mouth. I mean, those people that are natural or not so natural, they've just focused on their own development for a long time. And they're people that others are attracted to,
Right.
and they've created a level of influence that people want to be in their presence somewhere. Right. And I think it's really important. Gallup would tell you, again, their latest book is a good one. I love Gallup books because they're all research based, but it's called Culture Shock. Well worth anybody's read on this. And they have a gratuitous cycle as well, but it starts with leadership. And their second level there is positioning to strength. I would ask viewers to ask themselves, how diligent am I when I'm putting a person in a position, this is a person that leverages their talent. And it's like we were talking about earlier when it comes to horticulture in my trees. I can put a tree in one area that it will literally die if I don't move it, because it didn't get enough light, enough water, whatever, move it to another position and it thrives.
Yes.
I see this in the workplace all the time. So we have to elevate our leadership skills to be able to do that for sure.
Yeah, we can't be expecting other people. And especially I see it in larger organizations where the owners assume that the people below them are being good leaders because they've been there for 15 years or 10 years.
Yes. Yeah.
There's no actual leadership training.
No.
Yeah. Like you said, it is a skill set that needs to be learned.
Listen, I love neuroscience and I read neuroscience all the time. I would love to be a neurosurgeon. You would want me touching them. I have no. Yeah. We throw somebody in a leadership position to address the biggest challenge that we have, the epidemic. The disengagement epidemic is the responsibility of leadership. No, it can't come from anywhere else. And we still have not gotten our head around the need for training for those folks. Like a dedicated, not a weekend program, not a 4-day program, but a dedicated, ongoing, sometimes couple-year program.
Yeah.
The companies that are successful in the Leaders Way program are the ones that typically the run out is 3 to 4 years. That they keep people in the program. They talk every month. They're working and elevating their skills, and profitability far compensates.
Right.
Profitability far compensates for that. So I think it's a lot of what I would ask the viewers to think about.
For sure.
It's as Cynic says, you find yourself out of shape and you say, listen, that's it. And I'm going to go to the gym all weekend so that I'm in good shape Monday. Well, you won't look any different Monday.
Right.
Zero. But if you do it every day, at some point you're going to get in shape. You don't know when that is.
Right.
But you will get shape. It's and I want to make sure that I say this. We're talking about, your podcast is about collision industry and I've been around it now for 20 some years and certainly in a mechanical close enough for a collective 45 or 50 years. And this is universal. There's no picking on the collision industry.
Of course. Yeah.
The insurance groups that I work with, and I work with a ton of them, provide no training. They just move high performers into leadership positions and they flounder.
Right.
But it's not a good position for them. Number one. Number two, they don't have skill set.
Right.
So they drive disengagement.
Right.
Yeah, they make it worse.
Right. They're encouraging what they're trying to negate.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel that we have a default nature. We do what we do because that's the way we've always done it. And we have a tendency to default back to that. And anything that you do that's different, the second you start to do differently, everything, all the alarm bells in your body and your system and your brain and your wiring is like, oh, unsafe. Let's put them back. Put them right back to where they were. So I do definitely agree. And I do personal development, a lot of things like that. And I have a coach I work with on a regular basis. And the reason for it is the same reason you're talking about. It's the accountability. It's the encouraging of the stretching to stay on course. Because if you don't have somebody there assisting you, teaching you, monitoring you to some degree, that accountability, we will anyway, but we can identify when we start to go back to default to assist in the growth.
Yes. I hope everybody's hearing this. I mean, it's like everybody needs a coach, like everybody. And I always have a coach, and people, like, I've been doing this forever. Right. And when I talk about my coach, they go, what? Of course I do. If I have somebody challenging me, I never get better. If I'm not getting better, I can't bring anything important to you. But I think about this, Mickey, is that our challenge with this, and this goes into neuroscience, and it certainly goes into the survival brain, and how the survival brain, our inability to manage the survival brain, impacts so many of our decisions. But more than anything, I think it's a bad relationship with discomfort. I think the reason we don't change our habits, the reason that we don't change our businesses, because we have a bad relationship with discomfort. And that we will never, hold on a second, we will never improve our businesses without being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yes.
We're challenging the very things that you just spoke of.
Right.
We're moving out of the familiar. Their survival brain says this is a threat.
Yes.
It's a physical threat.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm going to keep you safe by making you resist this change.
Yes. Yes. And it is so powerful, and it's work. It's a lot of work, and it's so worth it. It's so worth it.
It is. And let me close with this, if I could, because I know we need to go, is that, again, this is Gallup. This is nothing else. They've proven that organizations that operate in the upper quartile of employee engagement are 4 times more profitable. I would ask any of the listeners here, if somebody said, I can show you how you can be 4 times, quadruple your profitability, would you say, no, I'm not interested?
Yeah.
But I can tell you statistically, 1 out of 10 companies that we talk to about this will do it. Just 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
I was in Oklahoma City working with a furniture store last week with a group of next gen leaders. And I had told the story in the beginning of a 3-hour session. And I asked everybody to recap at the end. I said, what's the most important thing that you got from today's session? And this one guy that runs a technical side of this business, he said, I just pray that we're 1 out of 10. The younger generation is starving for this.
Yes.
They're pleading with you.
Yes.
They're on their hands and knees saying, please help us. No, we don't not like you. We don't not want to work. We just don't know how. We need more.
We need more.
Yeah. I mean, the opportunity is there. It's just waiting.
Right. That's a beautiful way to wrap it up, Kevin. I think this is one of those episodes where people are going to share this with their teams. They're going to re-listen to it. And I really hope for everybody listening that you take some time to think on these things. This is definitely a shift of perspective. So it can be a little bit, at first, yet so powerful all at the same time. And I'm going to put Kevin's contact information in the show notes below. So if you want to be one of the 10 to do something, to start doing different, because it at the end of the day, it's do different. And it's easy to say, and it's hard to do. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And you really have to be committed. But if you really want it, you do what you need to do.
Excellent.
Yeah. So Kevin, your information is in the show notes. This was awesome. I know we got things to do. We got to get off the call, but I so appreciate you coming on. This was an amazing conversation. Just
anytime.
So happy to know you.
I love the chemistry and I love the way you think, and we could chat all day.
Yes. Yes, we could. All right, Kevin, thank you again. And thank you, everybody, for listening to today's episode of the Body Bangin' Podcast. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things auto body.